Okay, let's have a look at a process where we can start to write recurring decimals as a fraction. So let's take zero point 0.8 recurring. We know that's going to be 8 ninths. We just saw in our previous video that it's going to be 8 ninths. So the process we need to go through is we're going to involve some algebra. So let x be equal to 0.8 recurring. So the 0.8 recurring, we can write like that. What we need to do, what I want to do is get rid of the fractional parts. All the things behind the decimal place. So if I play around with this, I can get 10x there. If I multiply x by 10, I have to multiply this side by 10. So I'm going to get 8.8 recurring. Now I do this because what I want to do is get some subtraction happening that involves the recurring decimal parts. So if I do that now and say, well, if I get 10x, take away x, that's going to leave me 9x. But 10, if I'm going to do the right hand side and use these values, 10x is actually equal to 8.8 recurring minus 0.8 recurring. Now if we do the subtraction, the recurring decimal parts go and just leaves us with 8. And that's what we need. Remember, if we were going to write something as a fraction, we needed to write the numerator and denominator as integers. They can't be fractions, they can't be decimals, they have to be integers. So what we need to do is get rid of the fractional part, that decimal part, and by doing this process that allows us to do it. And you can go back and check and say, well, 8 divided by 9, put it in the calculator, it will come back as 0.8 recurring. So that's the process we need to do. Sometimes it gets a little bit harder, we need to manipulate our equations a little bit. Let's have a look at this one. 0.263 recurring, which is a way of writing 0.263, 263, 263, 263. What I need to do is, when I do my subtraction, I need to get rid of the fractional part. Now, it's no good multiplying it by 10 in this case, because multiplying it by 10 would just give me 2.63, and then I'd have the 2 again, then 263, 263. If I do the subtraction there, I'm not going to get rid of the fractional parts. It's only going to do the subtraction of fractional parts there, and I'm going to end up with a fraction. That's why we need to multiply it by 1,000, because we've got tens, hundreds, thousands here. I need to go one complete cycle. So 3 decimal places means I've got to multiply it by 1,000, which when I do that gives me 263, and then another 0.263 recurring. If I do my multiplications here and I don't get numbers to subtract that have exactly the same decimal points, then it's not going to work. So we need to make sure we get the same decimal parts there. So there's 1,000x. We're going to do our subtraction of minus x. So we get the 263.263 recurring. And we're going to minus the 0.263 recurring. So if we take that subtraction, our decimal parts are going to go, we're going to get 263 there. Divide by 999 to get my fraction. And there's our fraction. Now, it's not in its most simplest form. If we want to write it in its most simplest form, that'll come down to 121 over 333. So there's its simplest form. We're not really too worried about that, but we do try and put our fractions down into its most simplest form. So calculator, again, if you throw that into the calculator, it will do that for you, but you're just dividing top and bottom by 3. Let's have a look at the third one. Now, this one's a little bit different, because x is 1.2 and then the 7 recurs. So it's not 2727, it's just 1.2 and then a 7 recurs. Now here again, it's no good multiplying by 10 and then saying 10x minus x, because we've got that 2 there. So I'm going to do a little trick and say, well, let's take 10x, so that will give me 12.7 recurring. Now what can I do to get another part with the 0.7 recurring? Well, let's multiply it by 100 to give us 127.7 recurring. So if you notice now, I've got 2 numbers here where the decimal part's the same. If the decimal part's not the same, it won't work. I'll get fraction parts there. I can't have that I'll have a decimal part there. I can't have it in a fraction. So if we do this, the subtraction here, and we've gone a bit slow. So 100x minus 10x would be the 127.7 recurring minus 12.7 recurring. Now, that would give us, when we do our subtraction, that gives us 115. So we've got the 90x over that side. Just change that. That in your notes is wrong. And we've also got a 9 in there, so get rid of that. That was being left over. So 115 on 90, which we get that because we divide by 90 on that side. So there's our fraction that we get. You can bring that down to lowest terms, and we can put it as a number 1 and 5 over 18, which makes sense because we've got 1.27. So it'd be a whole number and a fractional part. So the 0.27 recurring is equal to 5 on 18. So if you put 5 on 18 in the calculator, that will give you 0.27 recurring. So there's our process. We need to manipulate it using our algebra, multiply it by 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, depending on what our decimal part is. And then we need to do our subtraction and manipulation such that we get rid of any fractional parts. Once we get the fractional parts, we're left with whole numbers that we can express our number x in terms of. We can start to express a recurring decimal as a fraction, and that will happen every time.